Good evening, and welcome to the council meeting of September 25th, 2023. The meeting is being live streamed on the Town of Kentville YouTube channel. The most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. In recognition of National Truth and Reconciliation, on September 30th, this evening presents an opportunity to make a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that our work and the Town of Kentville are located within the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are responsible and accountable to uphold the recommendations and process of truth and reconciliation. We are all treaty people. We are also pleased to welcome interim CAO Rachel Bedingfield to the table. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting package? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? I will remind members of council that we are in decision-making mode and we should be mindful of our decision-making wheel. We will be voting by electronic means for all votes except administrative. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before the meeting commences? We do have quorum. We have been provided with proposed agenda. CAO, are there any further additions to our agenda?
There are none on my end.
Okay, thank you. Councillor York?
Thank you. I had submitted an RFD last week and I'm hoping to have it added to the agenda this evening.
Okay. That would be under new business. And we will put it as item C so that it follows item B, which is the Hurricane Lee follow-up.
Sure.
And we'll move emergency management protocols to D.
Okay, thank you.
It will become C, and emergency management protocols will become D. What was the name of your RFD, Councillor York?
That's an excellent question. Hold on. I believe I just named it after myself, but hold on.
Okay, we'll go with stormwater management. then.
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, I don't see title.
That's the content, not the name of the plat.
All right, so you've got that for the agenda. Right, Jennifer? Okay, thank you. Councillor Zabian?
Yes, I'd like to have a discussion around the repairs and maintenance required to the former Via Rail Station that we own in town.
Do you have an RFD for that?
No, but I brought this back so many times, Mayor Snow, that I mean, how many RFDs do I have to present on the same topic?
Has there been an RFD submitted on this matter?
Yeah, there was one, I think back in a year ago, there was at least one. I might have done two in the last 2.5 years.
Okay, for a discussion, that will go to CAC. This is decision-making.
Can we just have a discussion tonight about it? Because I asked 2 weeks ago and you pushed me off then and said that it was inappropriate.
Councillor Zabian, that is an operational matter, and as previously discussed, the last time you asked for it, it was put to the CAO as an operational matter.
Mayor Snow, everything seems to be operational lately. Just with all due respect, I'd like to have a discussion on this if we can tonight.
Do you have an RFD?
You've got one. I've done it twice, and we're nowhere closer than we were
Okay,
before.
I do not have an RFD from you on this
Mayor Snow,
matter.
I've mentioned this
Councillor,
now 3 or 4 times in 3 years.
Excuse me, I asked you a question. Do you have an RFD?
Yes, it's in the file. Maybe we can look it up.
I do not have an RFD from you on this matter. However, council still has the last say on this.
Thank you.
Council, we have a request to bring an agenda item on the former Via Rail Station building. All those who wish to have this added to the agenda, please signify with a yes. So that's
Yes.
those.
Sir, are you going around? I apologize. Are you going around?
No, I was just expecting you to put your hand up. So Councillor Maxwell, you're a yes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have 4 votes for a yes, so we will add that to the agenda under, we'll put it,
New business?
no, we'll put it under new business. Since, yeah, it'll be E. Is there anything further? If I could have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillor Zabian, Councillor Huntley, for the second. Oh, Gerard, sorry. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. The minutes of the July 31st, 2023 council meeting have been distributed for review. Are there any changes to this set of minutes? No changes. They are adopted as circulated. You also have the council minutes from the September 7th special council meeting. Are there any changes to this set of minutes? No changes? All right, they are adopted as circulated. The next item on our list is with regards to reappointment of the audit committee members. And I had a discussion with the solicitor today, and it's was determined or pointed out by the solicitor that both members were appointed to a 2-year term last year in July of 2022. Therefore, this motion is not required unless there's a reason to remove a committee member from the committee. So that item has no further business. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. I don't understand. You mean they're remaining on the committee?
That's correct.
But there was no call for interest, though. How can you
Because,
just appoint people when you didn't?
Councillor, I did not appoint them. They were appointed by council in July of 2022 to a 2-year term.
For two audits, though? So they've done 2 audits?
No, July 2022, they were appointed for a 2-year term. So they've done 1 audit, they've got 1 more to do. Typically, the motion comes before council annually.
I am very confused. I don't think that's accurate, Mayor Snow, and we had this conversation 2 months ago in here. I don't recall that at all, and at the last meeting that we had, the audit committee, you even told me yourself that one of them was up, so I'm just confused how this changed now.
Thank you. I'll give the floor to the solicitor on the matter.
So I only know the facts as they've been described to me, and I'm going to look to the mayor to just confirm the first year of Susan's appointment was 2019 or 18?
Yep.
So this is her 3rd term, but they are 2-year terms. So these appointments that are 2-year terms, they are appointed to a committee, in this case, the audit committee, for 2 years. It comes to you annually to review that, but unless you choose to remove somebody from a committee, they're still there because it was a 2-year appointment. And so the point that you raised, Councillor Zabian, at the last meeting was the consecutive terms. And that certainly sounds like it was an issue that should have and perhaps did come up at her last appointment. But both members of the audit committee are halfway through their 2-year term, so they still have a year to serve before they are done, and you appoint somebody else or turn your mind to whether you reappoint them. But unless you want to remove somebody partway through their term, there's no need for a motion here tonight.
So just for clarity, it's 3 audits then they would be part of, not 2, because some of these people have done 2 audits in a row, so that's 2 audits. So you're saying 3 years then?
So, as I understand it, Susan, for example, is serving her 3rd 2-year term, her 3rd 2-year term.
Right.
Right? And so she is halfway through that term.
But the other person on the committee he has just finished his 2nd audit, so that means he's gonna go for a 3rd one. That's what's happening, right? Yeah.
So that I don't know. I understood that he was halfway through his first 2-year
Well-
term. If he has served his 2-year term,
Right.
then his name should come forward to be either, to be reappointed to the committee. But my understanding is that he has served 1 year of a 2-year term.
He's been, one of them has been 1 year, but they would have done 2 audits, last year's and this year's. So that means that they're gonna get 3 audits in a 2-year period. So is it 2 audits or is it 2 years?
It's 2 years. The policy is clear. It's a
So it could be
2-year,
3
it's
audits then if
2-year
you come
appointment.
At the right time, it could be 3 audits then. That's what's set up right now.
Correct.
I gonna be blunt, I find it hard, when I've seen other committees, how they've been dismantled, and it looks like we stack friends on committees, and unfortunately, well, it's fact, it's
Counselor,
fact.
that's
And
not a fact. You
it is a
cannot.
fact. It's a fact, but it's just unfortunate, how do you know that other,
Point of order.
okay.
Counselor, please, a point of order has been called.
Of course it has been, but Mayor Snow, this morning you sent us.
Counselor, you're out of order now.
Mayor Snow, you sent us a
Counselor, you're
document
now
this
out of
morning
order.
saying that this person had a lot of knowledge, but how do you know if other people in Kentville don't have equal
Counselor,
knowledge?
you're out of
when
order.
it's never been called out for that?
Counselor, you are out of order. Your point of order?
Talking about citizens in the town being stacked and being chosen over others on certain committees is why I called a point of order.
Thank you. Your point of order stands. Counselor, you'll be reminded to caution your words. Counselor Maxwell.
Thank you. I find this a little bit surprising, considering that we had the recommendation and we had a discussion last meeting. I've been on, council for 2 years almost, and I've seen a lot of recommendations to council. I've seen people come and I've seen people go. And certainly these comments that I make right now have nothing to do with Ms. McDougall. I've never met her, and I know of her, and I know that she would certainly be a good committee member. However, we have had people who are also keen and highly knowledgeable contributing members of the audit of a committee, and we have wanted to maintain continuity on other committees. And we just lost a member or two off the Inclusion and Accessibility Committee, who I know are keen and highly knowledgeable, yet their term was up and they had to step away. I've watched the same happen with the Police Commission. I've watched the same happen with Ron, who was a 20-year member serving on a committee of council. And to me, I'm really getting tired of watching our policies be enforced one way and then turn around and be enforced another way. I would call it willy-nilly. And as Councillor Zabian tried to point out, it does look funny. And it does cause people to speculate, because not only am I seeing these things happening, but the public is seeing these happening. And speculation then starts to run, why are some people staying and some people leaving? And it looks bad. And if we're gonna have policies, we either need to follow them or we need to throw them to the wind and say, we'll just enforce what we feel like enforcing. But I'm really getting tired of policies not being followed. And regardless of what the mayor says or what the solicitor says, I've just about reached my max on how we deal with committees here. Thank you.
Thank you for your opinion, Counselor. Excuse me, do you wish to leave the room? There's no applause during council meetings. Thank you. All right, moving on to our next matter is the renaming of Cornwallis Street. And CAO, I'll hand that over to you.
Right, I am, so you all have this report in your package. So this originated from a part of the accessibility committee, or inclusion and access advisory committee that prepared the process of which we're using in terms of how we want to rename streets in our town. So the initial part of it was that we want to make sure that it's not just picking apart and targeting certain streets, but rather that we have an inclusive process that the town can follow. I think what's really special about this is that the process itself, the policy itself, was designed by a community. So under discussion, we have the revision of the municipal asset naming and renaming policy. During the public engagement process, feedback was received that the word master should not be used in this policy. So to give people context, the part of the process is that we develop a huge list. I'm looking at Jen because she's been doing the work on this. And that from that list, the committee would come and pull names from that list that were collected throughout the community. The name on that list within the policy is a master list. So this committee, my understanding, is bringing forward that the use of the word master in some instances has a reference to slavery and power over others. So the committee members support the removal of the name master in terms of a master list of names from municipal asset naming and renaming policy. So it's really important to note that all of the decisions around this are filled with intention, including the words written within the policy. The process of public engagement renaming Cornwallis Street, staff provided the committee with a review of the public engagement process for the renaming of Cornwallis Street that was attached to this report. There are no policy implications at this time or budget implications. The recommendation from the committee is that council direct the CAO to revise the municipal asset naming and renaming policy by removing the word master, that Cornwallis Street be renamed Bridge as determined through the public engagement process, and that the proposed name list include Harmony to be the town of Kent onto the Kentville name list, and that the list be maintained by the planning technician.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, CAO. We have three recommendations here, and I have parceled them out as three individual motions. And the first one is with regards to the names list and removing the word master. And the motion is that council direct the CAO to revise the municipal asset naming and renaming policy by removing the word master.
So moved.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor York, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council direct the CAO to revise the municipal asset naming and renaming policy by removing the word master. Is there any discussion on this matter? I do have I guess a comment. I think that before we take any decision on this report is I wonder if we have truly achieved an act of reconciliation, and have we worked collaboratively with our Aboriginal partners and with our citizens to ensure that the renaming is truly an act of reconciliation that includes public education and dialogue. And the removal of the word master is requested. Are we interrupting your conversation?
Did you hear us back there?
Thank you.
Did you hear us
Excuse me?
back there?
Yes, I can hear you.
We were
Thank
just
you.
commenting on what you were saying.
The removal of the word master is requested, yet the word coyote remains on the list. The coyote is a predatory animal that is currently attacking humans in our province. Furthermore, it is used today in reference to persons who smuggle immigrants across the Mexican-United States border. The word coyote is a loan word from Mexican Spanish that usually refers to a species of North American wild dogs. The word druid refers to one of an ancient Celtic priesthood appearing in Irish and Welsh sagas and Christian legends as magicians and wizards. So you see, words all have meanings, whether they're master from a long time ago or a coyote that was used today. So now we have used the process and the policy, and I thank the committee for their work. However, we need to know if the policy as it's been written works, And does it need to be modified so that it truly reflects reconciliation? I ask that we table this report and the 3 decisions and return it to staff to ensure that the decisions and processes are meaningful to repair damaged trust and relationships and begin a true process of reconciliation. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I sit on that committee, and we have a membership from our local Indigenous community, and the policy has been written, and the policy has been followed to the letter. Reconciliation is about starting a process. It's not about completing a process. We can't start the process if every time we start the process, a roadblock is put up in front of the committee. This is something that was in the language that the committee felt was not acceptable for a document that we were starting out trying to build a bridge between the Indigenous community and our community. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a bridge. And we cannot build a bridge or extend our hand if we don't take a first step. And this is a first step. So I take your words, Mayor Snow, but again, you're one person, and you've dictated, or you've said that we should have a committee. The committee has
Councillor,
worked.
at
Yeah.
no time did I dictate anything.
No, I pulled
I
that
was
back. If you
provided-
listened, you would have heard me pull that back. All right? I pulled it back. All right? So give me a second. You don't need to jump down my throat right away. Right? This is something that council struck a committee. Council accepted the policy. A committee was selected with members from the Indigenous community and other people from our community. And the committee followed to the letter the policy. Now, if you don't like the policy, then you would have to put an RFD in and strike down the policy. But to say we're going to table everything after the work has already been done, I think is highly insulting to this council and to the people who sit on that committee. Thank you.
Thank you for your perspective. Councillor York.
Thank you. So I also sit on the Names Committee, and while I appreciate that there are likely some names that we have overlooked given that we don't have those heritages or those backgrounds, and those missteps are likely to happen as we move forward, I think we have 3 recommendations in front of us that would allow us to move along the work that has been done by the committee and the staff people and the community, while still leaving room for being able to re-examine the policy at any time to let us better ourselves. We can only, once we know better, we can do better, so perhaps we can take a look at those recommendations in Appendix A. But I don't think, in my opinion, that the work done for the first 3 recommendations needs to be stopped at this juncture in order to also review Appendix A. The renaming of Cornwallis Street has been a concern for many in our community for nearly a decade now, likely longer, but it's certainly been in the community consciousness for at least a decade. And I think it's disheartening at this stage to kick it back when we know the damage that's causing daily. And I think it is a small gesture that our community can make, and it's something that does reflect the fact that we are listening. And while we do listen to community, we can still make recommendations and we can still change things. These are living documents. So I would like to see us move some of these points forward while still being able to reflect on the fact that we may need to do better as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So just so I understand, the municipal asset naming and renaming policy is in place, and we collectively as a council approve that. And then this is just the revision with respect to the word master not being used in the policy, and then the other subsequent motions that are being made.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay. So I guess the only comment that I would have, so thank you for that clarification, would be Did the committee talk about the implications, sorry, to changing the street name in terms of folks that live on that street or businesses that live on that street or have businesses on that street, and the cost to changing name on whether it's stationery or things like that, or through the post office or what have you? I'm sure it was, but if I could get some clarification, that would be great.
Councillor York, are you prepared to speak to that as a committee member, or are you the right committee member to speak?
I will actually defer to Councillor Maxwell, who's the chair of that committee.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, as chair of the committee?
I can't recall if we specifically talked about that, but we talked about an awful lot of things. It wouldn't surprise me that we did talk about that. But that was a decision of council to change the name of Cornwallis Street. This council asked to have a committee formed and asked to have the name of Cornwallis Street changed. That would have been something that this council determined. If this council doesn't know what they did, then that's also a problem.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Councillor Gerard?
So I thought my question was going to be answered, but Deputy Mayor asked it. Who absorbs the cost of all the businesses? You know, they've got signage, they've got business cards, stuff like that, having to change all that. That answer had nothing to do with who's absorbing this cost. Thank you.
Thank you. CAO, can you help out on that?
I'm thinking back, it's in my memory somewhere, but those conversations came to this table when the policy was first introduced, around who would absorb those costs. And in general, it wasn't the town, but there was acknowledgement of that those costs do exist. But there wasn't a decision, as far as I can remember, again, day one.
I don't think it's fair for the council to make decisions that are going to affect. Now, it may be a small cost. It may be a huge cost. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of businesses on Cornwallis Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. West, did you need to add something to the conversation? I just saw you move to the mic.
I think we did have a very brief conversation about this at the committee meeting, and it was that the next step upon approval of the name would be to send it to our planning technician, who is aware of all of the 911, civic addressing. She's aware of all of those processes and the costs and the fees, and then for us to determine any other fees after that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
All right, Deputy Mayor?
Jennifer has answered my question, so thank you.
Perfect. Councillor York?
Thank you. I do want to say that the cost, whatever the financial cost of this results in, or whatever the financial cost is also the price of reconciliation. So these are, I recognize that for businesses and for homeowners and for people who work and operate on that street every day, that this is a hiccup, and this is probably a bit of an inconvenience at times, but those inconveniences are nothing compared to sort of the injustices and the indignities of leaving a name like Cornwallis in place. And I believe that the cost incurred is just part of the price of doing business when we have truth and reconciliation as a presented priority to this council.
Thank you. Councillor Zabia?
Thank you. Just looking for a little clarity here. I'm pretty sure it was the previous council that decided to have the name changed, so.
You're correct.
Right?
You're correct.
I am. So this conversation's led now to questioning whether you want to change it or not. Are you pulling back what you already agreed on? I'm very confused where this went. I thought this was just, as the acting CAO said, was to submit a document and remove a word. So is this a new conversation now? Are some of you don't want to change the name? Because that's where it's gone now. This conversation is so old about the cost. We had that the first couple months I was here. You guys were still finishing up and discussing that. So I'm very confused where this has gone.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell?
Councillor York said mostly what I want to say. I do have something in my mind, but probably better for me just to keep it to myself for now. Thank you.
All right, so we do have, are we ready for the question? Oh, Deputy Mayor?
Sorry, thank you, Worship. So just a couple of points. I think just in view of the fact that this did transpire back in between 2016 and 2020, some of those conversations and some of the information from it has probably left some of us around the horseshoe, particularly those that aren't on the committee. So the question around the cost and who that cost will be for, whether it's for constituents or whether it's for the town, is just a question that I had with respect to it. I fully support changing the name, and I support the recommendations as they're outlined from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. CAO, we'll leave that in staff's hands with regards to cost at some point. Okay, are we ready for the question? The question is that council direct the CAO to revise the municipal asset naming and renaming policy by removing the word master.
Meant to build system.
They go off again?
She was loved for my survey, sorry about that. So it's connected to the podium.
Can you see us?
I can see it here, but it's not coming up there.
Is it coming up on the other side?
No?
No?
It's not connected.
If Jen can see it, can we move forward and she can?
If you can see it, can we move forward? Does anyone have a problem with Jennifer saying the results?
Why don't we just go around?
Well, then it's not recorded,
We can still use our clickers.
so we'll use the clickers.
Okay.
And once Jennifer gets the report, then I'll ask you individually. Does that work? Does anyone have an issue with that?
No, that's fine. Okay,
Okay.
voting is now open. Just Paula, waiting for Paula. There you go.
Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Councillor Savage? Or Deputy Mayor Savage, sorry.
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
And I say yes. The motion is carried. Thank you. Our next recommendation is that the committee recommends that Cornwallis Street be renamed to Bridge Street as determined by public engagement. And the motion is that council approve the renaming of Cornwallis Street to Bridge Street. Somebody could move that?
Sorry, just a point of clarification. We don't decide the suffix, right? That's done by.
Excuse, no, it's a street, so it's a street.
So
Okay.
we do need to run it through to make sure that Bridge Street is the most appropriate. I'm pretty sure it is.
But it just changes to bridge?
Yeah.
Or that's the part
Bridge,
that we're
and then the
changing?
suffix will come later, but it's probably street. Is that
But
okay?
it probably super doesn't matter, but as we go
Okay.
through.
Right now it's Cornwall Street, correct?
Right.
Yes.
But if it changed since 1886.
You're moving that?
I confirm that it doesn't matter if we vote as street, if it then changes again to like avenue.
Okay,
or boulevard.
then if I were to read the motion, that council approve the renaming of Cornwallis Street to Bridge.
Yeah. Yes, please.
And a second? Councillor Maxwell, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the renaming of Cornwallis Street to Bridge. Is there any discussion on this matter? The question is that council approve the renaming of Cornwallis Street to Bridge.
Voting is now open.
Counselor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Counselor Huntley?
Yes.
Counselor Zabian?
Yes.
Counselor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Counselor York?
Yes.
And I say yes. Motion is carried. Thank you. And our third recommendation from this report is that the committee recommends that the proposed name list, including Harmony, to be the Town of Kentville names list, and that the list be maintained by the planning technician. So the motion is that council approve the proposed names list, and further, that it be maintained by the planning technician. Someone could move that, please. Councillor York, thank you. And seconder? Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the proposed name list, and further, that it be maintained by the planning technician. Is there any discussion on this matter? So I will present again to the group. Thank you for the work. However, I think that the committee needs to carefully assess the names. It's wonderful to bring in names. However, as already noted, coyote is a slang term for a human trafficker. Woodsboro is a fictional town in the Scream movie. Honeycrisp, if we're talking about the apple, is actually a single word. And Druid refers to priests and Christianity. And again, we've already seen the trouble that we get into going there. So I think that when these names come in, that we have to be very mindful of what's there and how we use them. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the proposed names list, and further, that it be maintained by the planning technician.
Voting is open. Voting is closed.
Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
And I say no. The motion is carried. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to our recommendations, and the recommendations are arising from the CAC meeting on September 11th, and they will be presented by Councillor York, and I would ask that you move each one of the motions after you have presented it. Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder. At the September 11th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Matthews presented the report for the temporary borrowing resolution to support work along the Donald E. Hiltz Connector. Council Advisory Committee recommends that Council approve the temporary borrowing resolution for $50,000 in support of the ICIP Donald E. Hiltz Connector. I so move.
Second? Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the temporary borrowing resolution in the amount of $50,000 in support of the ICIP Donald Hiltz Connector. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the temporary borrowing resolution in the amount of $50,000 in support of the ICIP Donald Hiltz Connector.
Voting is open. Voting is closed.
Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
And I say yes. Motion is carried. Thank you.
The temporary borrowing resolution withdrawal from capital. At the September 11th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Matthews presented the report for the temporary borrowing resolution to support various capital projects, including protected services, building, parks and recreation, sports fields, transportation, equipment, trails, streets, and sewer. Council Advisory Committee recommends that Council approve the temporary borrowing resolution for $2,390,000 in support of Schedule A capital project. I so move.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the temporary borrowing resolution in the amount of $2,390,000 in support of Schedule A capital projects. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the temporary borrowing resolution in the amount of $2,390,000 in support of Schedule A capital projects.
Voting is open. Voting is closed.
Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you.
Municipal Planning Strategy Amendment. At the September 11th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Caroline Robertson from C&D Community Design is the town's planner and will be presenting reports and recommendations for the town. Ms. Robertson reviewed options for planning advisory committees and provided recommendations for updates to the municipal planning strategy. Council Advisory Committee recommends that council review the proposed MPS policy recommendations and schedule a public participation meeting. I so move.
Councillor York, before we move on that, we do have a date for the public participation meeting. You did not have this information at the time.
Okay.
So there will be, and further, schedule a public participation meeting on November 13th, 2023 at 5 p.m.
I
Are
so
you still
move.
happy? Okay. Could I have a second, please? Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the proposed MPS policy recommendations as provided in the report dated the 15th of August, 2023, and further schedule a public participation meeting on November 13th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Is there any discussion on this matter? Council, you will recall that this amendment was with regards to advising our abutting municipalities of any changes in our MPS. And just for your information, Ms. Duncan has advised Kings County that we are proceeding with this amendment to our MPS. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Just clarification, will it be Ms. Duncan that presents at the public participation? Or will it be C&D?
I don't have the answer to that.
I don't either.
No, I believe it will be Ms. Duncan, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
everything is fairly straightforward. And all the changes that we discussed here during CAC have been embedded in the document, and that will be presented to us before we go in to this public participation meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the proposed MPS policy recommendations as provided in the report dated 15th of August 2023, and further schedule a public participation meeting on November 13th, 2023 at 5 p.m.
I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Voting's closed. Councillor Gerard?
No.
Councillor Huntley? Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you.
Rezoning application. At the September 11th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Planner Caroline Robertson outlined a proposal for a single detached dwelling in an R5 zone. To facilitate this construction, the deed holders wish to rezone a small section of the property to R1. The municipal planning strategy policy, which will allow the remainder of the property to develop for more intensive uses. The location of the proposed parcel of land adjacent to other R1 lots makes this a good candidate for R1 zoning. Council Advisory Committee recommends that Council approve the first reading of the proposal to rezone a portion of PID 55112999 from a large lot R5 zone to single unit dwelling R1 zone as outlined in the attached proposal. I so move.
Thank you very much, Councillor York. And once again, I have to beg for your patience on this matter. So this motion, when we received this information, it was talking about the larger lot with the PID number. But there's also a new, the new lot is called 2023-238P is actually the name of the smaller lot, and there will be a further. And the further is that the public hearing be scheduled for October 30th, 2023 at 5:30 PM.
I so
You're-
move.
You're still good with that?
Yeah.
All right, if I could have a seconder, please. Councillor Zabian, thank you.
I said so moved by accident, but
Okay, I think,
you know what I'm saying.
I knew what you meant. Okay, it has been moved and
If I could just clarify that, the lot is called Lot 2023, and it's shown on a plan that has the number that your worship referred to.
okay.
So the motion could read something like this: the council approve first reading to amend the land use bylaw to rezone lands shown as Lot 2023 on a plan of subdivision showing a portion of lands, this was all emailed, Jennifer, showing on a portion of lands conveyed to Stephen Healy and Patricia Healy, prepared by DeWolf and Moore Surveying Limited as its plan number 2023 and it's, I don't have that number.
238P.
Yeah, being part of PID 55112999 from large lot residential R5 zone to single unit dwelling R1 zone. That's what's actually occurring. And then if that gets passed at second reading, it's crystal clear exactly what occurred and what lands are impacted.
All right, thank you, Solicitor. Are you still happy with that, Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So it has been moved and seconded that council approve first reading of the proposal to rezone Lot 2023 on a plan of subdivision showing a portion of lands conveyed to Stephen Healy and Patricia Healy, prepared by DeWolf and Moore Surveying Limited, as its plan number 2023-238P, being part of PID 55112999. Is there any further discussion on this, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. I hope my question's simple. Is it now a larger piece of that PID, or it's still the same size that we were looking at changing from R5 to R1?
That's correct. It's as the drawing that we saw. This just gives further details.
Clarification around that, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any further discussion on? No.
Just wanted to be clear, that plan is in the package. You will, in your package is a sketch as well as a copy of that plan. So it's in your package.
All right. The question is that council approve first reading of the proposal to rezone Lot 2023 on a plan of subdivision showing a portion of lands conveyed to Stephen Healy and Patricia Healy, prepared by DeWolf and Moore Surveying Limited, as its plan number 2023-238P, being part of PID 55112999, from large lot R5 zone to single unit dwelling R1 zone as outlined in the proposal. And further, that a public hearing be scheduled for October 30th, 2023 at 5:30 PM. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
And I say yes. The motion is carried. Thank you.
Deer Haven Green Space. At the September 11th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Bedingfield presented her report on the green space in Deer Haven, which was designed to act as a connector for wildlife and a conduit for runoff. Staff reached out to residents through a public engagement session and a community survey about the interest in a trail in Deer Haven. Community response was generally in support of a green space with some landscaping. Council Advisory Committee recommends that Council approve the plan for the Deer Haven green space, and further, approve mowing and maintenance of a footpath from Deer Haven Drive connecting the Fenway Court and Whitetail Court Trail. I so move.
I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the plan for the Deer Haven green space and further approve mowing and maintenance of a footpath from Deer Haven Drive connecting Fenway Court and Whitetail Court Trail. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. To the acting CAO, there was the gentleman that spoke at the CAC meeting who talked about additional drainage being, is that going to be a factor? Are we reclaiming that? Is it going to be a water issue for someone down the road?
I don't have much to say about that right now. We don't, there's always an issue when people encroach on public land, I would say. I think that we're gonna be working with the folks in that community to figure out a solution.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the plan for the Deer Haven green space and further approve mowing and maintenance of a footpath from Deer Haven Drive connecting Fenway Court and Whitetail Court Trail. Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
And I say yes, motion is carried. Thank you.
Tennis facility. At the September 11th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Bedingfield presented the report of a proposed tennis facility near the Credit Union Recreation Complex. Regional and national groups have come together to help grow the sports of tennis and pickleball, and they are collaborating to find new facility locations. The town of Kentville is a community of interest from sites across Canada. The groups asked for a commitment from council around a site in Kentville for a facility to be potentially built. The council approved the plan for, that council approve in principle of the requested lot at 125 Park Street for the future construction of a tennis pickleball facility, and further that staff continue to work with the Kings County Tennis Association to support their efforts in bringing an indoor tennis and pickleball facility to Kentville. I so move.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Zabian, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve in principle the requested lot at 125 Park Street for the future construction of a tennis pickleball facility, and further that staff continue to work with the Kings County Tennis Association to support their efforts in bringing an indoor tennis and pickleball facility to Kentville. Is there any discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve in principle the requested lot at 125 Park Street for the future construction of a tennis pickleball facility, and further that staff continue to work with the Kings County Tennis Association to support their efforts in bringing an indoor tennis and pickleball facility to Kentville. Thank you. Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you.
Development Officer Appointment. At the September 11th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, CAO Trope described the need to formally appoint a Development Officer and recommended Planning Technician Assistant Development Officer Kirsten Duncan be given this appointment. Council Advisory Committee recommends that Council approve the appointment of Kirsten Duncan as the Development Officer for the town of Kentville. I so move.
Thank you. Second. Councillor Gerard, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the appointment of Kirsten Duncan as the Development Officer. Is there any discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the appointment of Kirsten Duncan as the Development Officer. Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you.
Sewer budget operating. At the September 11th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Directors Bell and Matthews presented the proposed 2023-2024 sanitary sewer budget. The capital budget is seeking $400,000 for the Phase 2 of the McDonald Avenue subdivision, Mill Run, and the Kentville Business Park. The proposed operating budget is for $1,490,900. Council Advisory Committee recommends that Council approve the balanced sanitary sewer area service operating budget in the amount of $1,490,900 for 2023-2024, and further conduct a rate study. I so move.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the sanitary sewer area service operating budget in the amount of $1,490,900 for the year of 2023 and further conduct a rate study. Is there any discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the sanitary sewer area service operating budget in the amount of $1,490,900 for the year 2023-2024 and further conduct a rate study. Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you.
Sewer budget capital. At the September 11th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Directors Bell and Matthews presented the proposed 2023-2024 sanitary sewer budget. The capital budget is seeking $400,000 for the Phase 2 of the McDonald Avenue subdivision, Mill Run, and the Kentville Business Park. The proposed operating budget is for $1,490,000. $1,490,900. Council Advisory Committee recommends that Council approve the sanitary sewer area service capital budget in the amount of $400,000, including its funding sources for the year 2023-2024. I so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council approve the sanitary sewer area service capital budget in the amount of $400,000, including its funding sources for the year of 2023-2024. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the sanitary sewer area service capital budget in the amount of $400,000, including its funding sources for the year 2023-2024. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley? Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you.
Sewer budget temporary borrowing resolution. At the September 11th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Matthews presented the report for the temporary borrowing resolution to support work of the McDonald subdivision sewer system. This system will be brought to council at the end, this item will be brought to council at the end of the meeting after review and approval of the sanitary sewer budgets. Council Advisory Committee recommends that council approve the temporary borrowing resolution for $180,000 in support of the McDonald Henry Braeside Phase 2. I so move.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the temporary borrowing resolution in the amount of $180,000 in support of the McDonald Henry Braeside Phase 2. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the temporary borrowing resolution in the amount of $180,000 in support of the McDonald Henry Braeside Phase 2. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Motion, and I say yes, motion is carried. Thank you. You're off the hook now. All right, moving right along, now our councillors and mayor's reports. And Councillor Gerard, we'll start with you. Just give me a sec. Now go.
Let me see, I'm not gonna list the last dates and everything because we've all done that. So September 7th, we had a personnel meeting. September 20th, I had a Kings point to point. There's discussion, and actually, I think they're gonna do a policy on cancellation fees. So they get a very high volume of, oh, so-and-so showed up, I'm gonna get a ride with them. In that event, drivers still have to be paid per stop and everything else, and they're losing because they could have taken on more. So that is, they're working on that policy. They are looking to fill a term position for short staffing. They're also looking for members of the public to become a member of the board. September 21st, 2023, Police Commission, I'll let Chair York take that. September 21st, Kentville Volunteer Fire Department Joint Fire Services. There's finally a signed contract with Camp Aldershot. Been signed after sitting down at the table for I believe it was 2 years, at least 2 years. They are testing out new batteries. The coverage has been an issue for their the radio, so they believe that the batteries are the issue. Truck replacement and repair, so tower is now in New Brunswick, getting the repairs that it needs. The new rescue pumper, the successful bid was 1.7 million, or just shy of 1.7 million. The build is now going to take 930 days. Recruitment is ongoing. There's currently 52 members. I think they say they like to keep a complement of around 55. And currently the chief's contract is up, and they have, between the society and the members, they have formed a committee for starting the process of picking a new chief. And over the last months, I've had continued conversations with citizens in the area of not just Condon Avenue, but all over town, who've been reaching out about the water issues that seem to be plaguing us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. All my meetings are listed there, and it was a very light month for August, but it's been a busy summer for sure. My report will show many topics from meetings on housing, transit, accessibility, climate, monthly focus groups on meetings with residents, their voices on specific topics, work on bridging the gap between youth and seniors with mentorship, and meetings with community college on ways to work with trades/housing. Building relationships will continue with all the committees with Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Association of Municipal Administrators, and Valley Wren, which will come up in October. I missed out, I wanted to add something to the agenda tonight, but I did not have an RFD. But moving forward, I would like to be able to put something on the table with correspondence and public correspondence to improve the flow of information. I look forward to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. First, I've attended all the meetings, and I want to make apologies for a May 23rd report from the Scholarship and Bursary Committee. I couldn't give this report in May because school was still in, and then I couldn't do it until after graduation in June, and then in July there was some confusion about when our July reports were in, and I thought I had a week, but an email seemed to say I had to get them in right away, and so I forgot and left it out. So as the saying goes, I guess better late than not at all. And I would like to name the winners of our Town of Kentville Scholarship and Bursary recipients this year, and they are as follows. Jana Rubino was the winner of the NOLA Folker Hill Scholarship. Margot McLeod was Town of Kentville Bursary. Hayden Feltham was a Town of Kentville Bursary, and Oliver Baker was a Town of Kentville Bursary. And I want to wish all those students well in their post-secondary education first year, and I'm sure that they're having a grand time getting started at the various universities and colleges that they're at. So that's late, but it's there. August 17th, I did a Zoom meeting with Municipalities Really Service Exchange Agreement, which was the updating on our service agreements with the province, basically. August 22nd, Special Council Meeting Personnel. August 30th was the Names List Committee, which we've looked at tonight, and we did look at names for the dog park and Cornwallis Street, which will all eventually come to council. September 7th was a Special Council Meeting Personnel. September 8th, I attended the Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee. We reviewed the Town Hall audit. The Rick Hansen standard for accessibility will be used for changes only to the extent of how we can improve within the building. It will not be followed 100%. Because the building is so far from that standard that it would be discouraging trying to meet the standard. Our older buildings in town cannot accommodate all the items of the checklist, so we'll follow it as closely as we can, but just to see how we can improve. We looked at feedback from residents over the summer, and we will continue to try and get more results to the survey and so on. So far, we are working on the items that the public has suggested from the feedback that we've received. The AT plan is being updated and going through revision. The Heritage Committee, we met on September 18th. We're working on a draft bylaw for council. Town of Kentville event, August 25th, I went over to the end of summer celebration at Oakdean Park. And it was a great turnout, fantastic day for it as well. Many activities were offered. Kudos to the organizers for that. They did. The selection was absolutely wonderful. And again, the most popular activity was the soap slide. I'm not quite sure why, but it seemed to be very, very popular. Thanks to the Rotary Club, who are always there, who always add to this celebration. You can't have a celebration without your free hot dogs and drinks, and the Rotary Club really adds to that, so big thanks to them. And on August 29th, I met with a citizen concerning bike course in town, and that's my report.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So the same as the rest of the folks, last council meeting attended and last CAC. August the 9th was a regional sewer committee meeting where we had a summer project update, and then we retired into closed session as per section 22 of the MGA, contract negotiations. There was a motion to come out of camera where a recommendation was then made to various partners, one of those partners being the town of Kentville, to share in the cost of the desludging of cell 1. August the 9th was Kentville Business Community. I have the minutes attached there, reports from the treasurer, facade committee, promotions committee, etc. There were discussions around hotel in Kentville. There were discussions around homelessness, discussions around 3-hour parking, and all the minutes are there. There's a few more facades that are taking place. The Multicultural Festival unfortunately had to be delayed, and it's rescheduled for October the 21st. So hopefully we have a nice day. August the 22nd was a meeting with Mayor Snow and CAO Troke. August the 24th was, as other councillors have mentioned, the Service Exchange Regional Meeting where we discussed service agreements province-wide. September 7th was an in-camera meeting where we discussed CAO recruitment. And September 13th was Investment Advisory Committee, which our portfolio sits right now at 12.8 million. We had updates from our investment advisor. Some of the cash that we have on hand, we're moving some of that over to GIC and corporate bond ladder, not plural. As a result of the GICs purchased in the previous month, our money-weighted year-to-date performance balanced against the income CAD is offside, as the balanced income Canadian is indexed to market. And so this is very normal and what we would expect to see. Due to the economic slowdown, we are less weighted in equities for now. September the 20th, I sat in an intermunicipal service agreement meeting. I stood in for Mayor Snow, where there were the two main areas that are discussed in that IMSA meeting are the Valley Regional Solid Waste and King's Transit Authority, and their variety of recommendations were made at that meeting. August the 30th, I had a meeting with some residents. September the 8th, I've been in discussions similar to some of my other colleagues with respect to citizens around Condon and also Brook. September 19th, I had a meeting with residents on Crescent Avenue. September the 20th, Regional Sewer, there was a public meeting at the New Minas Fire Hall that I attended as I sit on that committee. There was some really good discussions, and there was a presentation done with respect to the desludging of Cell 1 and what that's going to look like when it will commence, which is October 1st and should take about 30 days to complete. And they will be working right around the clock to get that done. Further, the County of Kings, where they own the asset, talked about a system assessment report that was going to be done, and that they are just embarking and engaging wastewater engineers to produce a remedial work plan that will talk about all the that they will look at all the processes. They'll look at permits. Do they have the right people? Weekly quality assurance, the right air systems, how much sludge should be removed on a per annum basis, and so on and so forth. So it was a very informative meeting, and I guess at the end of it, they reinforced to the citizens that there's the 3 Ps that can go in your sewer: pee, poop, and paper, and that is it. Not even dental floss. So it was a very informative meeting. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor York.
Thank you. Most of the items on my list have also been discussed, so I'll save you from having to hear my voice too much longer in this meeting. There's a lot up front. The Annapolis Valley Regional Library Committee, we discussed all of the changes and new opportunities that are happening for the AVRL at the moment. They've had a busy summer, but they've also had some staff turnover, so there are some opportunities there, an opportunity for the library to grow. If you know a librarian, perhaps they would like to relocate to the Annapolis Valley. Just putting that out there. The Board of Police Commissioners met, and though we did have our summer break, we had been all working sort of diligently behind the scenes as the summer took place. So we have made some really solid headway on our strategic plan as well as our manual policy. So we're reviewing those and hope to have some actual work done for public, I think, consumption by the winter. So as we go through community engagement sessions and as we work and sort of go through these with fine-tooth combs, we're bringing things forward as we get there. Additionally, we have in front of us the opportunity to hire our new police chief. So that will be happening in the near future. We have a meeting later this week to discuss that. In addition to our Board of Police Commissioners meeting, I had the opportunity to participate in the Nova Scotia Association for Police Governance, the NSAPG conference that was held in Bridgewater. So the conference was September 13th through 15th. However, I just showed up for the 14th and the morning of the 15th. But we met with boards and organizations as well as police services across the province to discuss the changes both in policing in Nova Scotia as well as changes that are happening at the Police Academy, and then what's happening in New Brunswick presently between municipal forces in partnership with the RCMP and how that's working across the province and what that might mean for Nova Scotia moving forward for policing. So there's a lot of stuff happening on the horizon. There's a lot of stuff that certainly our Board of Police Commissioners will be looking at and trying to plan as we move forward with policing, and things that we will not be doing without sort of public engagement and making sure that residents are up to snuff on what's happening across the province. So there are some changes happening in policing and some things that are happening locally that will take place, and we'll be showing that through our Board of Police Commissioners meetings as we go to public engagement sessions as well. Again, the highlights from the summer for my family were the Oakdean Days, but as well as the summer concert series in Oakdean Park. That's a delightful little thing that happens in our parks, and it's a really nice way to use that space and to reimagine what a park can be. So thank you to the summer staff for putting that on and organizing that. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Sapien.
Thank you. My report's attached. I'm going to take my time to talk to make a few comments. Council, we have all seen the tremendous rains and flooding that have damaged our roads, ditches, and properties this past summer, and also done great damage to the properties of our residents and businesses. I know that we all want to find solutions together to mitigate future damage to our properties and that of our residents. I think in order to do this, though, Council needs a comprehensive report from staff that outlines the various areas affected by stormwater damage, a delineation of where the issues are on private or public property, and then various options, pricing and timeline for each option. Then Council can decide which option it wishes and ask staff to pursue and how we budget and pay for these upgrades. I expect there could be even provincial and federal funding programs available to help, and I think Council would want to take advantage of these programs now. I know this is a lot of work, but our staff are professional and experts in solving problems, so let's empower them tonight to help us find a solution to 1, 2, 3, or more of our stormwater issues. Let's not wait and hope our future road buildings or housing developments will fix these problems. Let's do this work now so that other road building and housing projects will have a head start when they're ready to begin. I hope that Council will request staff to prepare a comprehensive stormwater review of areas within the town that are regularly susceptible to flooding and flood damage, and that they be authorized to consult with hydrologists or even other technical experts to provide us with a report and recommendation for consideration at our next CAC meeting. Thank you.
CAO, did you have any update for this evening from an operational perspective?
I think it will be addressed when we get to Director Bell's report.
Okay, very good
Thank you.
then. All right, so my report, you have my report in your package. As you can see, attended several of the NSFM service exchange agreements with the province. It had good and bad in it, and from our perspective, it was pretty good for the town of Kentville. There was also a public safety consultation with regards to contract policing within the province. And really, when they're talking about contracting policing, they're talking about the RCMP. However, everything that they do has a roll-down effect. So for that reason, those of us with our own police forces were invited to attend those meetings just to hear what was happening. From an IMSA perspective, I was on the audit committee for both King's Transit and Valley Waste financial audits. The NSFM mayors and wardens also received a strategic plan presentation from Workmen's Compensation Board of Nova Scotia. So they have a new strategic plan, they have a new CEO and a new way of doing business. And their intention is to take us from the bottom of the Canadian pile to the top of the Canadian pile with lower premiums and better service for people who are using workmen's compensation. I also attended a very interesting event on the 23rd of August. It was Does Your Lagoon Require Dredging webinar, and actually it marries up quite well with the work that we're doing with our regional sewer. And one of the big takeaways was when and how dredging should occur and the frequency of maintenance. I also say that I did not attend, as noted in my report, on the 20th of September, the Regional Sewer King's public meeting, as I did not get home from Halifax from my other meeting in time to attend that. Had a couple of interesting miscellaneous days with regards to the recruit class at Aldershot. So the Royal Canadian Air Force is training recruits up at Aldershot. And upon graduation, they're sent across the country to begin their life as airmen and airwomen. On the 17th of September, I attended the Battle of Britain Parade in Greenwood, and you will recall that this was the first battle of the Second World War, which was fought purely in the air. 121 Canadians lost their life on that day, and this is the battle that Winston Churchill has often said that so many owed so few, and those pilots and crew were the few. And that is my report. All right, moving on to our new business. Our first item of new business is with regards to the Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee. CAO, did you want to take that?
You were.
Oh,
I apologize.
sorry,
had-
I wasn't paying
had-
attention.
Because the deputy mayor had her remo, I thought we were gonna go through it, but I have two comments
Okay,
about the remo. Number one, I see they're reporting on COVID again, and I see that they're relying on the PCR test. Maybe you could ask Dan or someone at remo. The CDC no longer accepts PCR tests. They've been found to be 66 to 98% false positives. So somebody might want to ask that question. But the second thing, and it came up at the Joint Fire Services, who is responsible
Counselor?
for the EMO in the town? You might want to have a conversation with the fire chief, because there was some confusion down on Brook Avenue when that occurred, whether it was the fire department takes care of it, someone at town hall takes care of it, Red Cross, whatever. So, and I can give you Scott's contact. But there was just some confusion. They asked me and I didn't know.
just give me a second here. Go ahead.
Through the chair, sorry. Yes, so we do have a REMO committee meeting coming up on October the 16th. There's a few things, to your point, that will be on that agenda. I think I approved the agenda last night, or gave Dan the okay to circulate it out. Vulnerable person registry was also on that, but I'll ensure that those are added as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Gerard, I missed your last statement. There was sorry.
So the.
With the VPR.
Yeah, the CDC has gotten rid of the PCR test. I see that Nova Scotia is still.
No,
relying-
sorry, the vulnerable persons registry, VPR.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry. So at the fire commission, they said, who's responsible at the town for EMO? And I said, I don't know, but I'll find out. There was some question when they evacuated some residents on Brook Avenue as to, does the fire department take these people, you know, what the protocol is? And I didn't know, so I put it off to.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor. Oh, okay,
Whatever.
go ahead.
Jennifer, sorry, those will be in the minutes, all of what Councillor Gerard said, and then I will take that to the next meeting, remote meeting, sorry, thanks.
All right, is there anything else before we move forward? CAO, Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee.
Right, so excuse me, my goodness. I'm just going to read this out because it's quite short. You do have this in your package. But as stated in policy statement G57, committees of council, council has the right to appoint citizens to each committee based on the required skills and experience needed. For the Kentville Inclusion and Access Committee, the following citizens have volunteered to sit on this committee and have the skills, interests, and experience around inclusion and accessibility. Mike Cameron and Spencer Lang. Staff are recommending that council appoint these two members to be voting members on this committee.
Thank you, CAO. So the motion is that council appoint the following members to the Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee: Mike Cameron and Spencer Lang. Councillor Maxwell, thank you. And Councillor York for the second, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council appoint the following members to the Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee: Mike Cameron and Spencer Lang. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to appoint the following members to the Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee: Mike Cameron and Spencer Lang.
Board is open. Voting is closed.
Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Counselor York?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you, and thank you to those citizens who stepped up for this committee. All right, and our next one is Hurricane Lee follow-up. I will hand that off to you, CAO.
Thank you very much. I'm so used to standing up at the podium that I have to get used to sitting down and presenting. I'm used to being able to move my feet. So you have in your package, there's an inter-office memo delivered to us from Director Bell. I'm hoping you've had a chance to read that. It is quite succinct. I do want to highlight a few pieces of that, and this is in follow-up. Just a better understanding of what the town is doing with regards to the recent events. Sorry.
Can you speak a little closer?
Sorry.
You have a
You can't hear?
gentle voice.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I work better with more caffeine. Also, I will be better prepared next
You
time.
can pull a mic near you if you
Oh my God, it's like a rock concert. How's this? Is this good? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just do this if you can't. So there are many factors affecting the culmination of water where it isn't meant to flow or collect. This includes the volume of water that falls and the time frame in which it falls, catch basins being clogged and blocked by both the natural occurrence of debris and human interference. Work is underway and more will be required far upstream from where the issues are presenting. Ongoing work will be required to mitigate water issues in those localized areas. Silt, rock, and vegetation debris is being collected by runoff during heavy rainfalls and pushed overland into existing stormwater systems, causing backups and, in some cases, the blocking or overwhelming of these systems. The report then goes on to discuss the role of municipalities when it comes to these issues, as well as the role of elected officials. But what I wanted to highlight here is what we're doing right now. So there are actions being taken in the immediate future, in the midterm, and then long-term future. So staff have walked key runoff areas upstream of the impacted areas and with the use of handheld GPS, mapped these locations on our GIS system. There are areas both on town land, such as the Gorge, and some adjacent privately owned properties either side of the Donald Lee Hills corridor that we plan to integrate into the collector road design to manage both stormwater intensity and the debris. So that includes the things like rock, silt, and organics that negatively impact our existing infrastructure. These need to be areas that are accessible to not only build, but also maintain and operate on an ongoing basis as the town of Kentville continues to grow. So that means sometimes access to be able to mitigate anything isn't as easy as just driving down the road. Designs are being commissioned now in conjunction with the Donald Lee Hills Road project and will necessitate the acquisition of additional land in the upstream area of the impacted downtown infrastructure. So specifically a note from Director Bell saying that we're currently engaging a firm to look at the stormwater management system in these affected areas and hoping to work with them later on in the fall.
Thank you, CAO. We do have an RFD with regards to the stormwater management, and otherwise, if you wish, we can do that RFD and then come back and I'll say combine both of those with questions to the CAO if that's acceptable to council. Okay, then I'll hand it off to you, Councillor York.
Thank you. So as a background, I wrote this last week and sent it to council. I appreciate the support that I've received and from Councillor Xavier this evening, who was able to quote some of it before he took off. Before he had to leave. So I appreciate that he was able to do that. So I'm just going to read it briefly. Because written, I am much more succinct than speaking. Flooding in our town has seemingly reached record high occurrences. While climate change is almost certainly a factor, we cannot ignore failing infrastructure. Condon Avenue is a highly visible example of these issues. However, similar problems occur in neighborhoods across town, creating erosion, excessive flooding, and property damage, both public and private. It is also important to note that these continued events generate a lot of emotional upset and stress for community members and their families, in addition to personal financial burdens. It is my opinion, and one that I hope Town Council shares, that we do the following 2 steps. First, create and update a stormwater management plan and incorporate it into our planning policies. And second, investigate the root causes of these recurring floods and create an action plan that addresses them in the immediate future, unrelated to work on expanding the Donald Hills Connector Road and other similar planning projects. Appreciating that a project of this scope will overwhelm a department already at capacity, I request that an outside agency perform this study so that they can review the project with an engineering and environmental lens. This proposal will undoubtedly add an unexpected budget line item. Still, as we go without a project like this, we will continue to incur unbudgeted repairs and maintenance in the form of Band-Aid solutions while eroding our town and our citizens' trust. The need for an immediate, if temporary, solution is evident. Climate change is here to stay, but repeated flooding needn't be. So I'll add that to the conversation.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor York. So I think if we put these two matters together, some of your questions, although not fully answered, there is something happening, and as you can see, your recommendation of having somebody has been addressed in the letter from Director Bell with regards to engaging a third party. So Councillor Gerard, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I 100% agree with what Councillor York has said, but I would also like to add, and not make it part of the RFD, but I think immediately we should stop development in areas where we know this is going to happen. It always seems to happen below areas that were developed over the last 10 years, 15 years. I cringe to think with the 27 acres that's up Prospect, when they start removing trees to develop that, where that water's gonna go on the folks on Academy and Kent and Spring Garden. I can't say enough to say I think we need an independent. I guess I would end on a question to the CAO. Do we have a stormwater plan, and is it something that you can provide? Like, is there an existing one, or is it something that we're hopefully going to have moving forward? And if you don't have the answer now, when you find out, that would be wonderful. And if you could provide it to us.
If I may, through the chair. So what I know is that Director Bell is currently engaging with a firm to develop one for those specifically for the affected areas. I will look and come back to you if anything exists beyond that.
I'm wondering, because I know that there was a study done in '89, and if a plan or something came out of that. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. I welcome Director Bell's report. It's certainly helpful, and I'm sure the citizens of the town are happy to see it come to us. I have a couple of questions, though. Some of them have been already answered. I mean, obviously, my first was around the complement to carry out this type of work, and it's apparent now that it's being subcontracted out to another firm to help staff with that. The time frame around having that done is something I think we're talking about it going into the fall. So, I mean, in the meantime, particularly for areas of the town that are being impacted by whether it's sludge or debris, rock, silt, organics, what can we do to mitigate some of those harmful effects? So that would be another question, and then just another comment would be around, I know that we as a council agreed that we're going to move forward with a secondary plan, and perhaps that would be a great way to incorporate a stormwater management plan for the town in its entirety, as per Councillor Gerard's comments as well. That's all.
If I may, through the chair, thank you. Thanks for those questions, and I'm doing my best with what I know on day one of the job. I know that Public Works has worked really hard in between the weather events to clear as much debris from the system. A lot of it is kind of unprecedented in the way that things have let loose, much like in 2019. We saw the slump that happened in the, sorry. I'm just gonna have to, I want one like a singer, where it goes here.
Brittany one.
Like Brittany, that's right. Can you hear me now? Thank you for the waving. Much like in 2019 when we saw the slump that happened in the ravine, so like things are happening that are quite unprecedented. Public Works has done some good work of trying to clear the pipes that exist, and we're getting to a really good place. And then the last weather event happened, and it's just at a more intense rate. So there's a little bit of needing to have enough space to be able to clear the system that is existing. And then again, going back to the short-term solution, the interim solution, and then the long-term, which is the Donald Hills and the build-out of all those pieces. I think your second question, sorry, I'm just trying to remember, but with regards to the timeline and the costs of these things and all of those pieces. So Director Bell is actually engaging right now with a consultant in terms of just supporting. It is a capacity issue. We only have so many people in Public Works. Yeah. We're fortunate to have someone like Director Bell who knows the questions that need to be asked. So he will be working with them on that to be able to figure that out. Once we figure things out, it will come back to council. There are things that will need to be asked in terms of budget requests to be able to do the work, potentially discussions around land and things like that. So timeline is now to late fall.
Okay.
Is when that process is happening.
Okay.
And in the interim, continue to clean up and get everything working.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor York.
Thank you. So reviewing Director Bell's report, I think, or rather, I suspect we're having a similar reaction, but to two different concerns. So my concern is not the damage that could be expected in a hurricane situation or in unexpected flooding situations. So if I had a damp space in my basement, I wouldn't expect the town to come and fix that problem because the area around my home, very fortunately, wasn't impacted negatively by failed infrastructure. The language that's in this follow-up does concern me slightly. When we say things like leaky basements and flooded yards, those are natural consequences of hurricanes. I appreciate that. But the leaking basements and flooded yards are as a result of failed infrastructure. For the most part, the water seems to be coming through because of clogged infrastructure. So perhaps the infrastructure hasn't failed, but rather that it is clogged. But it seems, and perhaps I am splitting hairs and I will own that, but it seems a little bit more intense in areas where all of the apparatuses for receiving that water cannot possibly receive them, and the water travels adversely throughout a neighborhood. So I just want to, I believe and I know that Public Works staff are working tirelessly within the town to eradicate and fix these problems. I understand that, and I do appreciate the effort that they've put in to date. But these are just, and again, I recognize that I am likely splitting hairs from this report and my concerns. But I do have concerns that we are asking people to rely on their insurance, or residents to rely on insurance claims when they're now being told that they cannot be insured because they have to keep relying on the same insurance claim in a repeated disaster-like area over and over and over again. So I do have that concern, and I do recognize that residents in this room, and then also who weren't able to participate this evening, have that concern and share that concern. And it just feels a little uncomfortable for me to know that I think we're talking about very similar concerns, but we're not quite on the same page. And perhaps that's my own unclarity, or not being quite as clear as I needed to be. But my concern is a little bit different than what's being presented here. We do know that these problems are occurring, and we are trying to fix them, but it's a lot to keep pushing back onto the resident when their insurance claims are no longer handling it. and when their insurances are saying, or their insurance providers are saying, we can no longer insure you because you keep having the same problem. And perhaps that isn't our problem, but it is a concern that I would like to bring forward. Thank you.
Councillor Gerard, I've got you in order. However, Councillor Maxwell hasn't spoken yet, so I'll defer to her first, please. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I know that this is a very upsetting situation for all residents who have experienced water damage. And living here my entire life, I can be quite honest and say that I have never seen water come down like it came down in these past 2 storms. Never at the rate of which it came down. And I feel that we're rushing to judgment. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel very much as if we're rushing to judgment on our staff and our Public Works Department. I don't think that any of them knew that debris and silt and so on would come rushing down that slope at the rate and speed that it came rushing down. And so this is a first-time thing. It happened, and they're going to have to fix. Well,
Excuse me, order.
okay. So
Councillor Maxwell, go ahead, please.
yeah, I mean, I know it happened before, but not at that rate and speed. We've never seen those sewer pipes sucked out of the rocks coming and so on like we've seen this time. And I think that we shouldn't rush to judgment. We have infrastructure in this town that is old. It needs to be replaced all over the entire town. And so I think that our staff, I'm gonna, speak for our staff here. I think that we have to give them time to come up with their plans. Their first action was to mitigate, to try and stop what was happening, to alleviate the situation. And now we've been told that they're going to, Director Bell is looking out for a third party to consult with and so on. And that's what good engineers will do. They will go to their contacts and they will find the people that they need to come in and help them. And I think that, we have been rushing to judgment on staff, and I don't think that we should be doing that. And as far as holding back development, if we did that, the people living in McDougall Heights subdivision would have no homes there, because this, we had a huge flood down on West Main Street years ago, and the water came down from that development, and there was an issue down there. And so I think it's one of these things that I think we just have to have some faith in Director Bell. He's a professional engineer, and the people he's working with are professional. We pay them well to do the job, but we've got to give them time to do the job. And I think rushing to judgment and making criticisms and wanting a solution tomorrow is it's too much. It's too much to expect from anybody to want a solution tomorrow. And so I am willing to let Director Bell and his staff continue to work and come up with their people that are going to help them, and let them do their job. And we'll see what comes out of that. I don't think that reacting out of anger and frustration and so on, and believe me, I know where it comes from. I mean, I have some water in my basement from this past storm, so I know what it's like. And so I think it's something that we have to be aware of. It's not just this location or that location. It's all over town. If this pipe is too big going into this small one, and we replace this small one, then that just pushes the problem down here. Now we have a big pipe going into a small one. And then so we replace that, and pretty soon we're going all around the entire town. So I think we have to let them come up with a plan. And we have to let them do their job. That's what we pay them for. And they are professional people, right? That's what we need to do. And, that's how I feel. I just feel like we need to just let them do their job. instead of putting out all this harsh criticism and expecting things to happen tomorrow. That can't happen. I don't see that happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, Councillor Huntley hasn't spoken, so
Okay.
Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. I have a lot of feelings about this. First of all, no one's blaming staff or Dave Bell. Everybody knows, I know they do, everybody knows that people are going to try and figure this out. However, I do understand their frustration. I've been there 2 years ago. I understand. However, I'm going back to if we're going to get an outside firm to help, which is great, we really need that. How will what they're finding out be communicated to council and residents? So will it come out? I guess communication is one of my big things, because when there's no communication, that fuels the frustration tenfold. So I'm wondering, obviously we don't have the firm like tomorrow, but will there be an update for residents weekly, bi-week? Like how, has anybody really thought about that yet? But that is a question for me. And I know when I check our Kentville website, there was September 15th, you could click on and you could find some information, but then it was 3 days later and it was still the same date. So I was like, I know people are busy, that's not where I'm going, but can it be every 2 days, some sort of schedule that the residents would at least be able to follow along? And I understand everybody wants to email and everybody wants to phone call. I understand that, but sometimes when there's only 1 or 2 humans on the other end, it's going to be hard to get a response. However, it is key to have communication. So one is my question of the outside firm. How will we be updated? And 2, the stormwater management plan. When do you think we will hear a little bit about that? If there is something you can share with us now, or will we know in a couple of weeks a little bit of something, or do you not know yet?
So just for clarification purposes, you're asking about communications and then the completion of the plan?
No, just do we have one?
Just do we have one?
Yes.
So I think Councillor Gerard mentioned that there was one that was created in the late 80s.
Yes.
Yes,
That was a study, sorry.
that was
It
the
was a study.
Right.
89, yeah.
Yeah. And then we currently have an asset management strategy. We're updating our NPS, but with regards to storm management, I actually don't have the answer to that question.
Yeah, okay.
I can
fair.
get back to you. With regards to the communication, I can tell you that we've been having lots of conversations internally around our communications to the public, both when and how, and ways to improve that. So those conversations have started, and we're pulling things together. And then with regards to the timing of, we get project updates. I can't tell you if they'll be regular or not. If we commit to reporting every 2 days, there may not be updates every 2 days. But any decisions, certainly of the policy and budgetary piece, will have to come back to council anyway.
Yes.
And we can have regular reports back from that, and updates. I'll make sure that staff can send that around. But the staff are committed to communicating.
Yes, for sure.
And increasing that, improving that, both on the website, both when you call town hall, making sure that that you have someone who is able to listen to your concerns and either direct you or take those down and guide. But that plan is in the process right now.
Thank you, Rachel.
Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. I have 3 quick things. Number 1, I want to thank I think it's all men, but the men and women for Public Works. Please don't holler and scream at the guy that shows up at your driveway or the guy that shows up on your road with a backhoe to try and clear things. They're doing their job. They're doing what they've been told to do. They're not the ones to holler at. Number 2, being a landscaper and doing work in the town, there's been several times where I've been called to certain areas that are prone to have water issues and listen to the homeowner say, I've lived here 10 years, this has never happened before. And, you know, you can look around and see what the issue is. But the third thing, and it's more information maybe if you could get it for us, when we do have these larger issues of rain, what's the cost to the town that these guys are going, you know, street to street trying to mediate stuff? And this one's been a couple of weeks now. But what's the, and what's not getting done when they're not able to do their work? Thank you.
Councillor York.
Thank you, and I believe this is my third time speaking, so also my last. I want to reiterate that as an elected official, my job is to bring forward concerns and the very real concerns and the very valid concerns of our residents. So that is my job. Secondly, I don't believe I have been critical of any one person, any one department, or any one response. Our job is to bring forward concerns, and our job is to support staff however we can through this side of the equation in municipal government. The work that is being done every day by the public works staff is to be commended and is to be lauded. What they're doing is difficult, what they're doing is labor intensive, what they're doing is extraordinarily difficult and skilled. I don't think raising concerns about how, as a town, we all respond is a criticism, but rather when we know better, we can do better, and we need to be responsible to the citizens of this town, and that's what I was elected to do. I have made it clear in my RFD and in my communications with both our previous CAO, our current CAO, and our staff and department heads that this is not an individual criticism, this is not myself pointing fingers, but rather an attempt to find a solution and an attempt to communicate the residents who elected me to this chair, their concerns and their frustrations, doing my job. Third, and likely lastly, when we have had these experiences as it relates to our town being on the receiving end of these sorts of climate change related and also infrastructure related events, I guess, specifically thinking of the ravine, when there was a rain event and land washed out into our ravine, we began working with all of the partners at the table to find a solution to that problem. And so we worked with everybody at the table instead of taking the ownership on ourselves solely and entirely. And perhaps that's different when we are talking about governments of different levels, you know, abutting on properties, but it is something to be cognizant of as we move forward in these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And I think all of us around this horseshoe are saying the same thing essentially, and it's nice to see that you know, we are subcontracting out. I think that's going to make a huge difference. I'll reiterate again that when we are looking at a secondary plan, that it is a great time that drainage can go hand in hand with that secondary planning strategy. I think that will be very important, and I'm sure that will be something that's conveyed through to Director Bell. I'll just go back to one other item that I mentioned. I know we had some light rain last week, and still the silt and the debris and organics were coming down, I'll say in Condon. Can you just sort of give us an update where the infrastructure is right now in terms of, is it cleaned out now so that that if we have your average rain, your normal rain, that folks won't see that same thing happening? Or how, back to my point earlier, about mitigating that piece on town land, if that makes sense, I hope.
Sorry, I'm just thinking of your questions. What I can tell you, so first of all, I appreciate all of the comments and concerns, I think. Yeah, and especially your comments around, are we working with the right people at the table? It is concerning and it's really scary, and I hate the thought that people get panic attacks the minute the weather shows a rain cloud on the app, right? I can tell you and reiterate what has already been said, that staff are working extremely hard, are equally as concerned and emotional about it all. And what I can tell you is that our public works staff, I'm going to throw parks in there too, because those are my people. Our, go out the minute they're able to, the minute their shift starts, and have been working hard to get things cleaned up again and again and again. As it happens, and are just as frustrated. And like I said, the last time they were really close to having everything cleared, and then another system that wasn't even talked about came in. So there's no doubt in my mind that they are out there getting everything to a state of readiness for the next rain. And you had another question. I need to start writing these questions down. What was the next question? Sorry.
Yeah, I think you've answered it. I think they're doing what they can do. Are there other measures?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think that's more what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think, as from a broader, from an immediate context, I can tell you that staff are doing everything that they can with the resources that they have. To what Councillor Gerard had mentioned before, we do need to have a larger look at the cost of this to the town, but also the resources that we have, and do we have what we need as a municipality, right, with the changing weather, to be able to keep up with the constant demand. There is a large cost when it comes to overtime hours. We can only ask our staff to work so many hours. We only have so much equipment. The equipment only has so much of a lifespan. All of these things need to be taken into consideration. So while we have staff on the ground that are working in the immediate future trying to get everything cleared up so that the system can support what would arguably be a normal rainfall or weather event, we also need to have enough space to be able to think broadly and move forward as weather shifts and things shift in our community. So this is the work that we're doing. We communicate differently. We need to communicate differently. We need to think about expansion of staff, more resources. Director Bell saying that he needs some extra support and needs another engineering mind on this is one of those things. He is an excellent engineer. He also recognizes when the job is too big even for him, and I appreciate that professionalism in him. But I promise everybody that there is nobody in here that isn't devastated by what is happening to our community.
Councillor Gerard?
Just very quickly, I wanted to add to what CAO Bedingfield said. I alluded to everyone who works, Public Works, Parks and Rec, they've got day-to-day stuff. The same goes for everyone who works in this building, right? Running this town is a day-to-day thing, and to take on a huge entity like upgrading our infrastructure to 2023 is not just take a weekend and do a paper. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. So I will just add a couple of things, only because I had an extra briefing before Lee hit us on Friday. So not only did we have staff on site, but we had also had 3 contractors supporting our staff, knowing that there were issues. And if you think about the fact that we had that huge rainstorm at the end of August, which was like 2 inches in 2 hours. It was unprecedented, as Councillor Maxwell talked about. And then we had kind of a 2-week gap, and the guys, again, our Public Works and the contractors were just getting everything dug out. And Thursday, we had that unscheduled rain, and we had almost 3 inches of rain in little less than 3 hours. So we did not have any infrastructure failure. None of our pipes, none of our drains failed. They were overwhelmed with the amount of water that came down. Now, had those other 2 events not occurred, Lee, for us, based on the rainfall that the research station clocked, it would have been a non-event for us. We would not have suffered this way, but it was all of these compounded things. The other thing that people saw while this was going on was storm drains that were bubbling water, and there was water running down streets. Now, the design of streets in Kentville is that we do have curbs on both streets. However, we do have 2 streets without curbs, but most of our streets have curbs. And the intention is when the water bubbles over through a storm drain is that it stays between the curbs and flows down the street. And there is a reason why the RCMP and the police tell you to stay home during these events. It's because this is part of the management. And I realize that for those of you in high-risk areas, that your guts are churning and it's coming at you faster than what you can deal with. And we are doing everything that we humanly can, and as you have been reported this evening, we do have a third party that is going to be working with us. Now, we still have that study from 1989. Our geography is still exactly the same as what it was in 1989. And when you look at it, we actually have five what they're saying are major drainage arteries coming down the south side of the town of Kentville. And those are the things that we have to deal with. And you've all pointed out all of these things. I guess as members of council, the best that we can do is provide our expectations of service to our staff and then provide them with the necessary funding to be able to do that job. This year, when we did our capital plan, it was an unprecedented over $5 million of funding for capital. I'm telling you right now, to fix all of these issues, we are going to need another $5 million. And I know that there's FCM money out there, and we're going to go after it like great bandits. But it all takes time. You heard last week, or last meeting, we had a member of the public ask us why it took us so long to fix something. Well, we still use the provincial procurement system. So we can't just hire Buddy off the street. We have to, particularly when it's over $5,000, go out to tender on some of these things. So we don't have the option of just pulling in somebody to do the job. We have to go through the process. And I realize that that doesn't keep the water at bay. And I'm not trying to make excuses. What I'm trying to do is put everything on the table so that you have the information and that at the end of the day, you can make the decisions that need to be made, because I know that our staff is doing that on a daily basis. And they are pivoting when they need to pivot, and they are reacting. And having 3 contractors on top of our staff is not something that we normally do. Councillor Huntley.
I just want to finish off and say, this is quite a topic. I know it's going to go on for a bit, but I just want to pass my thanks to all the staff. To know that they're, coming into work and they're stressing out when they see the rain start coming. I hate for them to go through that, but I appreciate their love for us and the town. And we do know that they're working hard, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the CAO will keep us updated, and as she keeps us updated, we will see a communication plan coming out of how this information will be shared. So moving on to our next item is emergency management protocols. So I'm going to ask, or if every member of this council has this little booklet at your home, beside your phone, or wherever it is in your office, and have you done the EMO training for how an elected official should be reacting in these events? First things first, elected officials have no direct role in emergency management, and you should not be going to areas where there is disaster, flooding, just to look and take photos. That's not your job. And they say, let the professionals trained in emergency management do their jobs. The other thing that you have to realize is that once the provincial command center is set up, they have command of everything. The town is no longer in the position to open our sites at our request. We have to wait for what's coming from the province. The other thing as well is that not only do we have public works staff out working, we also have folks that are staffing the command center for this area. So you have to think about that, is that, you know, staff is working during each one of these emergencies. So unless you are specifically asked, please do not speak to the media. That is my job, and typically, the comms team preps me. They give me things that I should be saying, things that I shouldn't be saying, and then we navigate as things happen. So it's very important that as elected officials that we do not speculate on what is happening with regards to the emergency, because that can just make things worse. The other thing that I want to say is that we do have important roles to play, whether it's responding to calls or questions from the public, passing on accurate information. And that's where we get the briefings from our staff with knowledge that we can pass on to our citizens. And elected officials can also help by doing things such as encouraging citizens to help their neighbors or to check on their neighbors. The other thing that I'm going to do right now is another plug for the Vulnerable Persons Registry. If you know somebody, if there's somebody on your street that you know is alone, perhaps they belong on that Vulnerable Persons Registry. Because when everything goes to crap, the fire department will check on these folks. And you may not be able to get out of your house, but an emergency services can. So from an emergency management protocols, please have a look at this book. If you haven't done the training, there will be upcoming training, and I'm sure that the Deputy Mayor will provide us with the dates of that from the REMO folks. The other thing as well is that REMO has some excellent information on their website, and I would ask you to have a look at it. Councillor Gerard.
Sorry for
No.
maybe going backwards, but Councillor York's RFD, are everything that she has in it we're doing?
I don't know the answer to that, but the CAO has it, and her and Dave will itemize.
Do we need a motion?
No, we do not need a motion. It's already been taken for action.
It sounds like it is being covered.
Okay,
The
perfect.
only thing that I'll say that isn't covered is failure of infrastructure. We had overwhelming of our existing infrastructure, but we did not have
So,
the failure.
so the RFD says an investigation as to the causes of recurring floods. So for us to sit here and go, we know what did or didn't cause, I think is a little
That's right.
preemptive.
No, you're correct, and, but we do know that we didn't have infrastructure failure, because we'd know if we have a broken pipe.
But-
Because they're cleaning them out. So
Okay.
if the pipe was broken, we'd know, because there'd be nothing in it, or it'd be clogged, or, you know, so
Okay.
from that perspective. So our next matter came from Councillor Zabian. Is there someone who is prepared? Deputy Mayor was,
Thank you. So I had spoken with a couple of the folks at the Heritage Center, Lynn Pulsfer, she's the chair, and I had relayed to CEO Troke at the time about some of the issues which we have talked about on a number of occasions. And he had responded to me in as much as there's stress on staff right now. Getting around to some of these things will happen. It's really, it's just from a time perspective. But staff is aware of what some of those items are, and it will happen. He could not give me an exact time frame at that juncture. And I conveyed that through to I guess she would be the president of the society. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Well, thank you. Yes, I've also had discussions, and as Councillor Zabian said, this is not just something that happened yesterday. This has been ongoing for months and months and months and months, that we've been asking to have windows caulked and windows scraped and things looked after. And I was down the other day, and Lynn went to move something on the outside of the building, on the the window, and I thought the wood was gonna fall right off. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a town asset, and we should be managing our assets a little bit better. And I think putting, not caulking windows and not scraping and painting windows is something that can get done. I understand right now it's busy, but the point is, it hasn't been that busy, 2, 3, 4 months ago. And so it's something that has been kind of shoved to the back burner, and I think we need to bring it to the front burner as soon as things settle a little bit, and let's get at it. Let's get those windows caulked before the winter sets in, and let's get them painted. All right, while we can paint. Thank you.
Thank you. CAO, I will hand this off to you because I believe it was one of your, in your former role, staff who was kind of scheduled to take this on. So I'll push this to you.
I don't have much else to comment other than it's pushed to me. So we'll make sure. I will. I know that some work has been done. We're slowly picking away at the list, right? So it's not that nothing has been done. It's just when that there is available time and resources, we've been picking away at it. And like former CAO Troke said, I believe at CAC, there aren't a lot of available staff resources at the moment, but it's still there. We haven't forgotten about it.
Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to say 7 years in a row. I think maybe during this planning strategy or something like that, I think the town should sit down and have a hard look on whether they want to or should be a landlord. I've said for 7 years, I don't agree that the town should be a landlord. And I think it's something that this council, or maybe the next council, should sit down and seriously decide whether they should be and want to be. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have no correspondence this evening. However, we do invite the public to make comments to council on matters that are currently before council. Items not on the agenda will not be entertained at this meeting. We ask you to state your name and address, and your comments are limited to 3 minutes. Oh, yes, and the desk, you can adjust the desk. There's a up-down button there to put it at your height. And please ensure that you do speak into the microphone.
So 3 minutes. I'll try to keep this to 3 minutes. Mayor Snow and councillors, my name is Dion Davidson. My wife Marisa and I live at 280 Park Street. What has been increasingly evident to us that it's actually a stormwater ditch waterway runs through our property. Communication was brought up a few minutes ago. As many of you are aware, we have made multiple attempts over several years, this is not a recent problem, to engage with Town of Kentville officials and council directly about the worsening and increasingly destructive volumes of stormwater, sedimentation, silt, and debris running into the waterway from the somewhat recently developed subdivisions upstream and the land owned by the Town of Kentville. We, at one point a couple of years ago, this led to the flooding of our home. Since then, we've been forced to have the waterway, the stormwater ditch, excavated repeatedly at our own expense over the years, as recently as last week, in fact, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to prevent our home from flooding again. A few weeks ago, as we all know, the waterway flooded multiple times, yet again, destroying more of our property, washing away what remained of our bridges, and again, filling the waterway and the receiving culvert running under Park Street with silt and debris. Of course, it's not just a problem for us, as we've been hearing. Many other citizens in our area have made us aware over the years, again, not a recent problem, and especially these last few weeks, that they've been dealing with similar issues. It has been made clear to us that in the development of residential subdivisions upstream, town and provincial stormwater management regulations and bylaws have not been followed, permits have not been obtained, inspections have not been completed, and infrastructure has not been maintained. In the planning stages for all developments affecting watercourses, the development officer is required by law to submit storm watercourse models to the Department of Environment, now called the ECC, including all stormwater management plans with proper modeling, including assessments of land and soil, both pre and post-development. Despite our legal requests, these models have not been submitted to us by the town of Kentville. More concerning, though, is that the Department of Environment has informed us that they also have no record of having ever been submitted these models or any other documentation with respect to these upstream developments. We previously submitted several independent stormwater specialist civil engineering formal reports to the council and mayor. These reports outline that 23 water pipe inlets drain from the subdivision developments to the south of us upstream into the watercourse system. There is apparently no town planning or maintenance records of these inlets even existing. It has been found that most of them have not been adequately constructed or maintained in accordance with Department of Environment watercourse erosion and sedimentation control regulations and guidelines. We have communicated to the town repeatedly that these issues are contributing to the erosion and infill of the downstream waterway and draining culvert. And this has been going on since 2015 at least. We have tons of documentation that we will email out attachments for them. We have them here physically, including a copy of the response to us from the Department of Transportation noting that they have no record of any permits, stormwater calculations, or inspections for the downstream culvert that runs under Park Street Highway 1. A similar copy of the response to us from the Department of Environment, noting that they have no record of any permits, stormwater calculations, or inspections for the upstream subdivision to the south of our property known as McDougall Heights. And a similar copy, again from the Department of Environment, again, they have no record of permits, stormwater calculations with respect to the Palmer subdivision. We have a number of other attachments that outline what stormwater management regulations pertain to and how stormwater is supposed to be managed. We have Kings County subdivision requirements attached, and the subdivision bylaws as of 1995 and updated into 2002. It's imperative that the council and mayor be aware of these alarming findings concerning these upstream subdivision developments, the lack of official record and documentation, and the overall lack of transparency. It's been talked about already, so I guess I'll just reinforce it. We request that you determine whether appropriate and legally required land use assessments were ever completed allowing the upstream subdivision development to proceed to begin with, how the development proceeded without record of appropriate and legally required stormwater management, and how these 23 water inlets were permitted to be installed incorrectly, and then neglected in terms of subsequent maintenance. We request an urgent halt to any further upstream land development and construction until these matters are resolved. But most importantly, we request that the stormwater management infrastructure be urgently, thoroughly evaluated by an expert third party, someone not with any business or other relationships to anybody currently on staff, and urgently brought up to legal standards and regulations in order to mitigate as much as possible further damages to property, both private property and town property, as well as safety risks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Kim Longavi. I live at 54 McDonald Park Road in Kentville. I live at the top of Palmer, and we've been trying to address this issue with the town now for 15 years. I've lived here for 23. I was the last house on McDonald Park Road before the town approved that the subdivisions are now connected. So the old Palmer subdivision is no longer a dead end, and there was a road pushed through to expand the other subdivision. And at that time, we started saying to this town the problems that we are going to incur. I have an issue with the town not responding. I have sent emails. I have left phone calls. I have tried in every mode to contact somebody from this council, including the mayor. I have made to you, Mayor Snow, several requests for a meeting, and you refuse to acknowledge that. You have not responded. I have spoken to your engineer, who has been up to my home to check. With promise upon promise, he will get back to us. No reply. I am a citizen here of this town. It is your job to protect us, to listen to us when we have major concerns. My home has been flooded so many times, this is ridiculous, and we have gone to this town several times for help. This is not, as you think, Kathy, a one-time incident. There is a huge history here. And then I come to this meeting and I see first annual residence survey. You won't get back to me. How is that supposed to happen? Can you please tell me why we can get no information on what is happening here in this town? Mayor Snow, would you like to answer that question?
This is your privilege to speak.
Oh, so I can't ask questions?
No.
Oh. No. So this is the typical procedure of the town. We've elected you people. It is your job to protect us. I don't sleep before a storm. I don't sleep before rain. Because my home gets flooded. Because there's a culvert with an easement the town has put there that flows into my backyard. I was told the way that I could get help from the town was to go get a sandbag, fill it yourself, lug it yourself, and hope it works. My husband and I lugged 150 sandbags at 50 pounds each. No truck, nobody helping us, just us, because we're trying to protect our home. And I would like to also say that the concern with insurance is valid. This town is now mapped. You can't get overland insurance here anymore. They're not going to do that because they know what's happening. I am so disappointed in this council. You do not represent your people. You shut us down. You don't reply to our concerns. We have brought this to our town engineer multiple times. Never an answer or not even a suggestion on how we should fix the issue here. So please don't all of you sit here and say, in the last 4 months, these problems are due to overflow water because we've had so much rain in so many minutes. I would like to see all of you in my position when it rains, when you worry, when you can't leave your home because it's going to flood. And your town council, who you've elected, refuses to speak to us. And as far as I'm understanding, you have a lawyer on staff that has advised you not to speak to us. That is not how a town council is supposed to act. I am very, very disappointed in this town council and how you represent the citizens of this town.
Thank you.
And I also don't appreciate you scolding us like children. Thank you.
My name is Bunny Bennett, and I live at 12 Condon Avenue. 36 years ago, my late husband and I downsized from our Elm Avenue home to one on Condon. Peaceful, lots of trees and wildlife, a little brook at the end of the street. A perfect place that we have upgraded and maintained. In the past, we have had several very heavy rainfalls. The little brook would swell, but rainwater disappeared into the underground pipes. About 8 years ago, things changed, and water did not disappear. but flowed down our street, and we were alarmed. Since then, we have had several floods, but it changed to mud water, gravel, large rocks, old tree roots, large pieces of logs, indication of clear cutting, perhaps. Basements started flooding and homes and yards were being damaged. 2019 was a very bad flood with a deep, swift current that eroded under the street, tore up large chunks of asphalt. Large rocks and debris everywhere. Sandbags were brought to us, and CAO Phillips helped me place them against my basement wall. I stayed dry. In 2020, you came to our aid by replacing our 1940s storm pipes with very large ones and did substantial work on the culvert at the top of the street where the once little brook used to be, and upgrading was done up there when needed. The following spring, you came back and replaced our very old sewer and water pipes, repaved, and gave us new curbing. Everything looked beautiful, and my confidence returned. When rainfalls were predicted, engineering and public works would come up and check the grate, make sure all was well. I was relieved, and I really thought that our flooding problem would never, never happen again. Rumor of future development at a higher elevation to my west started to make me fret. I stood here on this very spot. You may not remember, but I told you that I was 99.9% confident, but that 0.1% now made my spider senses tingle. And boy, was I right. Floods of muddy water, gravel, and rocks are happening again. This is recurring. Your infrastructure has failed us and others in the vicinity. If you don't find the source and fix it permanently, we will be subjected to more flooding. You want us to think it's 100% because of climate change, and it certainly is a major factor. It really is. However, it is not, and I stress not, the main reason we are flooding. Something has happened at a higher elevation over the past few years that has reshaped the land and caused erosion. We're downhill, so it's all coming our way. It would be horrible enough if it was nice, clean water, but it's not. 2019, our properties were clean of mud and debris by the town, except for Janet Speck's property, that was the very worst. It's now 2023, and we've had back-to-back flooding. Nobody from the town came near us to give us information or to offer any reassurance. No leaders of council or director of engineering or public works. We felt helpless and calls went unanswered. We eventually found out that we were responsible for shoveling thick, heavy mud and rocks from our properties, and some of us are senior citizens, put to the side of the road for pickup like it was a bag of leaves. Those who had to pay to have help did so using their own money. No information, no compassion, and no help. And very little communication, which was very frustrating for all of us because we didn't know what to do. Where do we go? Nobody's talking to us. So once again, my home stays dry, and I'm almost through, folks. But my neighbors' homes do not, and I watch them. They're frantically sandbagging, pumping, buying cement barriers, shoveling, throwing out basement belongings. I feel guilty because I'm dry. How this is affecting me is that my home, and it's not a big expensive home, but it's my home, my retirement home, and it is losing market value with every flood. When the day comes that I can no longer live there, will anyone want to buy a home with a history of flooding, and for what price? It sure would be great if you reduce my property tax as compensation, since none of this is my fault. I place the blame on you for not protecting me with proper infrastructure in those areas you are permitting to be developed without sufficient stormwater planning. In closing, please, please do something to help us. Until this is remedied, we will be facing even more of the same. We can't wait 3 or more years for holding ponds, etc. We need interim help, and we need it now. We are fearful, we are stressed, we are helpless, and I feel abandoned by the council that I helped to elect to serve me. Thank you very much.
All right, council.
The water's coming down from the high ground up on Prospect Street, and you get the hard rain, the further down it comes, the more water it gets. And I took a walk down through there to where she was talking about, and it's eroded the brook. It's made it look like a creek as it's that deep, and it's one place the whole side of the bank is caved in. Some of the big trees have fallen over. They can't fall all the way down because other trees are holding them. But the water coming down, and it starts from Prospect Street, and there's a subdivision. They had excavators 20 years ago up on Spring Garden Road at the end of it, where they're going to develop there, and nothing grew there except alder bushes, and I couldn't understand why. And it's because they dug up the ground when they clear cut, and you're going to do the same thing if you haven't made an effort to move over the road that you want to build through my end of my woodlot. You're going to get the same thing. Those are old growth trees. They're holding the water. They're right between the two streams up there. Then I got another one that comes down Glenview where all the rocks came down. There were people out there with shovels shoveling the rocks off the road, and it blew one of the manholes right up. They weigh 200 pounds. You got to have 2 men and 2 hooks to pick them up. It picked it right up and set it off on the ground. There was so much pressure there, and all the rocks that come down Glenview, which people, and it's all from. The more trees you cut down, the more water you're going to get. And the other thing is, you've said you're going to hire all these experts, and those big trucks that you hired, vacuum trucks I think they are, and all the experts you're going to hire, your taxes are going to have to go up. It's the only way you're going to pay for it, or else you're going to get the town in debt, which you're already in by the sound of things. And that's another thing. It's not going to be cheap. And if any city or town in North America, infrastructure taxes never keep up with infrastructure. So all the money you think you're going to make on the subdivision, you're going to end up paying for all these things that you got to fix now. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm back. My name's Janet Specht, 23 Conant Avenue, and I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but based on some of the things I heard, I have to stand up here and speak. But first of all, I really want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. It's time that we collectively come together and share our common voice. People on Facebook can't see, but I don't know, 50 people maybe? So thank you. I also want to thank some of the councilors here tonight for bringing up this very important issue of the flooding. And I want to say it's about time. I've been asking for 8 years. 8 years later, it's being talked about. Councillor Maxwell talking about we don't have an immediate solution. We don't expect an immediate solution. We know it takes time, but we do expect help. We've had no help. And there's no question, the staff, they work hard. I appreciate it. 2019, I baked them dozens of cookies and thanked them.
We thank them too.
But the town is not helping us. We need help. Sandbags. We're filling our own sandbags, barriers, buying our own barriers, paying for cleanup. I just paid for 59 hours to dig mud out of my property. Another comment I want to make, infrastructure. Mayor Snow mentioned that none of the infrastructure is broken. We don't know that on my street yet. They haven't cleaned it out yet. They've been at it for 8 or 10 days. I don't even know how many days. The machine's running, and I appreciate that, but we don't know yet. It's still clogged from the bottom of Condon Avenue to the top. And my last point is our tax bills that are due on October 3rd. All of us here, our tax bills are due, but our homes are not worth the value that that tax rate is based on. And I don't think any of us should pay our tax bill. Nope. So I just want you to consider that. And again, thank you for speaking to this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Megan Cox. I live at 19 Condon Avenue with my parents, who are both here as well. I just wanted to bring something up that hasn't really been talked about, but is a big issue in my household, is accessibility. My mom uses a wheelchair, and we've had to have sandbags in front of our property blocking her only exit from our home for over 2 weeks now. I find it very disheartening when, two seniors, one of whom's in a wheelchair, have been told by multiple people on staff that they need to fill sandbags and truck them themselves to their own property. Compassion goes a really long way with us. Like others have mentioned, we don't expect this to be fixed tomorrow, but compassion would be appreciated. It's very disheartening, it's very expensive, and it's exhausting. I had to call in sick to work 2 days last week because I was physically unable to go in because of all the sandbags and water I was moving over the weekend. Again, I understand that we can't fix this overnight, but some help from the town would be greatly appreciated. There's also people who live on our street who are seniors, like Bunny, and we also have a family with 2 newborn twins. There's a lot of people on our street that need help, and being abandoned by the town when these storms come, it doesn't help. And it's more disheartening than ever, and really makes me rethink who that I would want to vote for to represent us again in the next election cycle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Mark Rogers, 427 Park Street. Excuse me. I wasn't directly personally affected by the flooding, but a lot of my friends and a lot of my town was. I stand here frustrated that we hear from council, particularly from the mayor, that the infrastructure is not at fault. Well, that's fine to say that, but then tell us what is at fault. We know there's a problem, and you can say, oh, the water can drain away fine, but it's flowing down Condon, down Park, down Denison. It's flowing everywheres. Brooke, so we don't want to hear what's not the issue. We want to hear what is the issue. So is it the development at the top of the hill? Because I walked up Condon in my sneakers, because I tried boots and they just filled with water and I couldn't walk. When I got home and let them dry, I scooped a tablespoon of sand out of each of my sneakers. I say that as an example, because we look at the Little League field down at the bottom of the hill. It's covered in silt. Well, that silt gets into the infrastructure, and that is an ongoing issue. So I'm frustrated, I'm very sad, I'm disappointed with the conversation around this table. I do appreciate some of the councillors that brought up RFDs, et cetera, to put this on the agenda. Very much appreciate that. And I'm going to close by saying, Mayor Snow, that when people come to you with concerns, and we've talked before, It shouldn't be your first instinct to ask them to leave if they don't be quiet, because there's a lot of pain here in this room tonight. So a wee little bit of respect and some consideration for the people who are losing property value every storm would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, council has an item concerning personnel which must be conducted in closed session, and we require a motion to go into the closed session to discuss the agenda item. We will not be returning to YouTube for completion of the meeting. If I could have a motion to move into the closed session to discuss the agenda items. Paula, thank you. Kate, thanks. It's been moved and seconded that council move into a closed session. The question is on adoption of the motion to move into a closed session. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried, and the time is 8:40. We'll take a biological break.